You know we strap all day and ride all night. This is the life of a, you know, nigga, you know, nigga, you know.
So for the Green Bay Packers, I think out of the four teams in this division, I think they added the least amount. If you just glanced at the Packers, you would have said, "Oh man, they did some good things this last summer." They added Muhammad Wilkerson, they added Jimmy Graham. We lost Demarius Randall and Jordy Nelson was our two main losses, but hey, we added some other good talent, on our team. And when they added Jimmy Graham, you thought, wow. When was the last time? It's been since Jermichael Finley, since Aaron Rodgers has had really a reliable tight end, and when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's a big ad. That's a good ad for the Packers. I think those two are going to be very successful together. When we talk about fantasy football, if you can pull both those guys on the same team, get those discount double points. I thought that was a really good ad, and it was more of I was looking at it as an ad in fantasy football than it was in real football. But in real football, I don't know, really what direction the Packers are really doing here, because at the end of the day, last year we got to see, just as we have always imagined, what are the Packers without Aaron Rodgers, and they're nothing. And now, okay. I mean, Hundley did like all right. Like it was Hundley's first time, getting thrust onto the scene, and like he looked like he was improving throughout the year. And like we'll see if he's an NFL quarterback one day. I don't really know. We're not going to get into all of that. But the main thing is, it's almost like when Aaron Rodgers is on the field, or like when Aaron Rodgers is in the lineup, the defense plays better, or like I don't know what it is, but you kind of just felt like if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing in this game, the Packers have no chance. So the Packers to me is one of those teams that like you consider them as one of the upper echelon teams. Like they're up there with like the Falcons, the Saints, the Panthers, the Rams, the Eagles, the Vikings. I'd like to throw the Cowboys because I think the Cowboys have a really good offensive line and running game. So I like to throw the Cowboys in there. But the Packers to me, and I'm talking about the NFC, the Packers to me is a team that they really aren't. I mean, they have good players, don't get me wrong. I know how to fucking player evaluate. I know they have good players, don't get me wrong. But when I look at their team and the way their team plays together, it just doesn't seem like the way some of these other teams, like I feel as if Aaron Rodgers really gets the Packers to the upper echelon of these teams. I think if they didn't have Rodgers, they would just be another team in the league. And a lot of these guys probably wouldn't be on this team because they wouldn't look as successful if they didn't have Rodgers throwing to them or whatnot. So, okay, a lot of bullshit right there. But okay, let's get to this team. Now let's talk about the running backs, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. Both showed promise last year. Both had all right years. The Ty Montgomery experience didn't work out. I really didn't think it was going to work out. It was fun while it lasted. It was a cool little idea 2 years ago. We've never seen a wide receiver in the backfield. But then we realized there's a reason why Ty Montgomery's not a running back. He's not durable enough. There's a reason why we don't put wide receivers in the backfield. They're not durable enough to run the ball. They're not durable enough to catch those passes on the outside and get hit by a linebacker. So that's a way that you see something new comes to the NFL, and you see something. There's a way how it gets ended, and that's how it got ended. So then you got Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is. Maybe I like him better than others because I think he's also probably the top fantasy quarterback, and he puts up the most points week to week. I have a lot of respect for Drew Brees, and I have a lot of respect for someone like Tom Brady, and I know that Tom Brady's the GOAT, and I hate to compare Brees and Rodgers because they're both very, very good players, very talented players, different players as well. I think Rodgers is the type that. He just can power through anything. He doesn't fucking have to finesse anything. It's like anytime he's like, oh, I can't get this door open. Let me go fucking get. Like he's not Drew Brees. If the door's locked and he can't get the door open, Drew Brees is gonna go get a bobby pin and he's gonna figure it out. If Aaron Rodgers has got a door, he's just gonna knock the shit down. So it's just two different type of guys. I love Aaron Rodgers. I think that he's my favorite quarterback to watch. I think he does just I guess because he runs around. It's said that I get why a lot of people hate Aaron Rodgers because he's like the new Peyton Manning. He's the new pretty boy. He's on all the commercials and all that. So I understand why people don't like him, but I like him. I've had him in fantasy in the past. He's done good for me in the past. And, when you talk about fantasy quarterbacks, there's nobody that can put the numbers up that Rodgers puts up week to week. So that's what you get when you draft Rodgers. I think Jimmy Graham's going to be a good player this year. You talk about their offensive line, Brian Bulaga, good player. David Bakhtiari, a guy that's really came into his own in the last couple of years, one of the best left tackles in the NFL. I really like him. He's got Rodgers back. Lane Taylor, Corey Lindsey, and Justin McCray. So I'm not completely sold on this offensive line, and I've never really been sold on this offensive line. And I think that's the reason, Rodgers runs around like he does is because his offensive line isn't that good. But he knows where guys are going to be, and Rodgers watches enough film that he knows what's going on, and he knows tendencies and stuff like that. So that's another thing that sets Rodgers apart. I think their offensive line is not bad. I think it's an all right offensive line. They could run the ball at times last year, but it's nothing to write home about. We're not talking Dallas Cowboy top offensive line here. And you talk about the receivers. The receivers are just all right. With the loss of Jordy Nelson, Jordy Nelson, you say, he's kind of an older guy. He was getting up there in years. He wasn't as fast as he was. Well, okay. Well, what are you giving Rodgers in return? Okay, Davante Adams is an absolute stud, great player. Deserves to be a number one wide receiver. Deserves the opportunity. I'm glad for him. Randall Cobb and Rodgers don't have good chemistry, but somehow Randall Cobb's on this goddamn team every year, and he's an all right player. He was good multiple years ago when he was like a young player. It's something about Rodgers and Rodgers it's almost like Rodgers likes throwing to young guys. Like, I'm gonna throw this motherfucker that I don't even know. The Jeff Janices of the world, the Geronimo Allison, another guy on this team, Trevor Davis, a guy that kind of came on late last year when this team had a lot of injuries at receiver. So the thing is it's like there's this. The thing about the Packers, there's nothing really that exciting on the offensive side of the ball. Just some names. It's basically Rodgers and it's basically Davante Adams. A couple other guys, Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's going to be a good player this year. Maybe they'll set him out wide a little bit, like he used to be in New Orleans. I can see in the red zone, getting them out wide. Having Rodgers throw that fade just like they did with Wilson. Wilson and Rodgers did this last year. I see that happening. So. Nothing to really write home about the offense, but this is what Aaron Rodgers is going to get it done when it matters. So we know that's going to happen. And I think that the Packers, last year was kind of you can't really – what was last year? We don't really know because Aaron Rodgers missed a good portion of the season. What if Rodgers would have been here? He went out like week, 6 to Minnesota. He missed like 6 or 7, 8 weeks. They only won 3 games, and when he came back, they didn't even win, I don't think. He came back way too early. It was just like he wasn't ready. It was like the first time he was able to throw the ball, he was in a game. It was like he really literally had no time to rehab it, to get better, to like get some practice in. So, and you saw the rust, and it was there at the end of the year. But anyways, talking about this defense now, Muhammad Wilkerson they added, he's a big name type guy. We'll see if he makes an impact. I think the Jets did a good job of going ahead and letting him go. New scenery. Let's see if he makes an impact here. Kenny Clark, Mike Daniels. Mike Daniels is a good player. And Montravius Adams, a guy they added a couple years ago or maybe last year out of Auburn. And then the linebackers, Jake Ryan, a real good linebacker. I think he played at Michigan. Clay Matthews, USC. Clay Matthews is not the guy that he was when he first came into this league, but he's part of the team. He's one of the guys. Blake Martinez, another guy that is really good. I think Blake Martinez went to Stanford. Let me make sure that I'm right. Yeah, he went to Stanford, 2 years of experience. I like Blake Martinez. Some other guys, new guys, Oren Burks out of Vanderbilt, a guy they added, James Looney, a defensive or nose tackle out of Cal. I like him. And then Nick Perry, kind of one of the veteran linebackers they've had for multiple years, a good player. Kevin King, Tremont Williams is in the secondary. Tremont Williams is back. He was at Arizona last year. I think Tremont Williams has played for Green Bay in the past. They lost Morgan Burnett in the secondary to Pittsburgh. A tough loss there. Good player. Jordy Nelson, like I mentioned. Richard Rodgers to Philadelphia. Joe Thomas, linebacker, they lost to Dallas. To finish up the secondary, Kentrell Bryce, a safety, and then HaHa Clinton Dix. HaHa Clinton Dix is a good player, top 100 player, I think, this last year. And then talking some of the rookies. I really like these rookies they added. Josh Jackson, Jair Alexander, two guys I think that are going to make an impact early on. You know, I think Tremaine Williams will be one of those corners. I don't know. Kevin King will probably be one of those corners as well. You know, King, where is he? Out of Washington. Yeah, this kid was a pretty good player out of Washington. I think he's probably going to be a good cornerback this year, and I think you'll see a good amount of Josh Jackson and Jair Alexander as well. Talking about their draft class, Jair Alexander was their first pick, and then Josh Jackson was their second. So they went for those cornerbacks, you know, as their first two picks. That was a major area of concern. And then Kevin King was one of their early picks, I think, last year. So they're really trying to get, you know, hone down their secondary. Their secondary is kind of weak in a sense, kind of young, inexperienced. They're trying to really improve that. Owen Burks was their third pick. So as you can see, they're trying to really solidify this defense. You know they have Rodgers. They're going to put a couple of weapons around Rodgers. They're okay with the offensive line. They like the running back. So they're really adding defense at this point. So I think that was good. Jamon Moore, wide receiver out of Missouri. I honestly forgot that they added this guy. He wasn't on one of these guys on the roster. I think this guy's going to be a slot monster this year, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to learn how to use him early on. I think Jamon Moore is going to be a good fantasy guy to add waiver wire, maybe week 1, week 2, and maybe later in the year. Cole Madison, a guard they added out of Washington State, pretty good player. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I was not really high on this kid, 6'4", 206 out of South Florida. His speed is very, very good, though. He's got pretty good hands as well. His speed is what got him drafted. We'll see what kind of impact he makes this year. J.K. Scott, punter out of Alabama. Emmanuel St. Brown out of Notre Dame. Let me see if I can fucking even pronounce it. Equanimous St. Brown. I usually just call him St. Brown. He's got another little brother that's going somewhere this year. I forgot. I don't think he's going to Notre Dame. But this kid played a couple years at Notre Dame, 6'5", 214. He was a highly recruited guy. Kind of fell in the draft a little bit here. I could see him making an impact. So they drafted 3 wide receivers in the draft this year. One of those guys is gonna definitely make an impact this year, maybe 2 of them. So you can see what Green Bay did with their draft is they said that we don't really like our receiving core, but we got to keep a couple of these guys on the roster till we figure out which one of these guys is going to be the guy. So you can tell, you know, Rodgers, like I said at the first video, Rodgers does a lot of things with young receivers. I think he likes doing stuff with no-name guys, and I think this helps him too because they don't have as good of a scouting report on them. He knows how to use them in practice and stuff like that. So I think that one of those 3 guys is going to have a big impact this year for the Packers, and I think him and Rodgers is going to have a good connection. Some other guys in the draft: Hunter Bradley, a long snapper, Mississippi State, and then Kendall Donnerson out of Southeastern Missouri, a linebacker. So they had a really deep draft. They had lots of draft picks. And I think they did a very good job of adding stuff that they needed. You know, they knew they had their quarterback position locked up. They knew they had a good amount of things locked up. And I think they did a good job of adding a couple of things through the draft that they didn't have. They didn't add a lot of people through free agency. They didn't lose a lot of people through free agency, and they built through the draft pretty well. I think the biggest question for the Packers is I don't think that they're as good as the Vikings. You know, the big key is, okay, when you play the Vikings, match up with the Vikings. Play good against the Vikings, and that's a way you can win this division. But I don't think that they're as good as the Vikings. And so the next question is, are you better than the Lions? Can you and I think they're better than the Lions. I think Aaron Rodgers can get it done against the Lions. And so that's the reason why I think the Packers are a playoff contending team. They're going to be competing for a wild card spot, but I don't think that they're better than the Vikings. I think the Vikings' defense is better than this team's defense, And I think the weapons on offense that the Vikings have put together are better. Now, the one thing that the Packers are beating the Vikings at, as we know, is at the quarterback position. But that's a big X factor this year because we don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to be.
Ones and Lord, I'm trying to cut back. Hold up, well, my cup at my bitch got that comeback. Real one from the jump, man, I'm killing the jump, man.